Unexpected shifts often arrive on silent days, and December 12th is one of them. Many people overlook this date, but across ancient systems, the pattern of 12-12 has long been treated as a moment when the outer world and the inner world quietly click into alignment. I am Shiheng Yi, and today I will guide you through the deeper meaning behind this portal. Not the common stories you may have heard, but the hidden teachings that speak to renewal, order, and the completion of an inner cycle. Throughout history, the number 12 has marked endings that prepare the ground for a new beginning. 12 phases of the moon, 12 levels of spiritual ascent, 12 stages of inner cultivation. When this number repeats, the signal grows stronger. It marks a point where your life invites balance, reflection, and clarity, even if you've been ignoring that call for months. In this video, you will learn why this date is considered a catalyst for inner alignment, and how ancient teachings reveal a process far more practical and far more transformative than simple superstition. You will discover the subtle mechanics behind an activation, how attention shifts, how old patterns loosen, and how the mind enters a state where clarity becomes possible. I will also share lesser-known insights from traditional practice, quiet rituals of awareness used by monks to steady the mind during moments of transition. Stay with me until the end, because the final message of the 12-12's portal is not about prediction, it is about preparation. It offers a chance to reset your path with intention, discipline, and presence. Welcome to Shaolin Soulfire. If you seek wisdom that strengthens the spirit and steadies the mind, then subscribe and walk this path with us. There are moments in life when the world around you becomes unusually quiet, not in sound but in meaning. December 12th is one of those moments. Many call it a portal, but see it as something far simpler and far more powerful, a choice that becomes louder than usual. People often speak of energy gateways as if they are magical doors that suddenly open and pull you into a new destiny. But true portals do not work this way. They do not drag you forward. They stand before you like a still pool of water, reflecting everything you carry inside. When the date repeats 12-12, its symmetry acts like a mirror for the psyche. It reveals intentions you normally overlook, desires you silence, and fears you avoid. Nothing mystical, only clarity heightened by timing. On this day, the mind becomes more sensitive to the direction of your own inner movement. If you are restless, the restlessness appears sharper. If you are ready, readiness shines more brightly. This is why December 12th feels intense to some and silent to others. It does not send energy into you, it amplifies the energy you already hold. In the Shaolin tradition, we are taught that there are no shortcuts. No date, no alignment, no astrological pattern can replace discipline or intention. But certain days can make your inner truth harder to ignore. They give you an opportunity to see where you truly stand. When you understand this, portals stop being fantasies of escape and become reminders of responsibility. So on this day, the question is not, what will the portal do for me? The question is, what am I willing to see and what am I willing to change? Because the doorway is not outside you, it is within your own awareness, waiting for your next step. Long before anyone spoke of portals or energetic alignments, the masters understood a simple truth: nothing meaningful can enter a mind that is crowded. In the old monasteries, the first teaching was never movement, it was stillness. Students often believed that strength came from constant action, from training until the body trembled. But the elder monks would shake their heads and point to the quiet courtyard at dawn where the air seemed to pause between breaths. Stillness was the real beginning. When the mind settles, its deeper layers rise to the surface, like a lake revealing its depth once the wind stops disturbing it. In Shaolin practice, this is the moment when clarity appears. Not through force, not through striving, but through disciplined calm. The training was not about emptying the mind completely, it was about creating enough space for awareness to breathe, enough quiet for truth to be heard. This is why true activation cannot begin with chaos. It begins with silence. A silence you learn to hold even when the world presses in from every direction. Through meditation, breath control, and mindful observation, the senses soften and the constant chatter of thought loses its authority. A deeper current awakens, one that was always there, waiting beneath the noise. Ancient masters described stillness as a doorway that does not open outward but inward. Step through it, and you meet the part of yourself that is steady, focused, and unafraid. This is the self that guides decisions, sharpens perception, and transforms confusion into insight. On days like 12/12s, people seek signs, messages, and shifts. Yet the real shift happens only when stillness is allowed to enter, because without quiet, nothing can activate. Without calm, nothing can align. Stillness is the gateway, the threshold where inner mastery begins. In the old training halls, a student once asked why the master spoke so little. Their silence was not a mystery. It was discipline. Words were not used to fill the air. They were used to shape the mind. Every phrase carried intention. Every statement carried direction. Over time, the students learned that speech itself was a form of cultivation. In Shaolin tradition, the voice is not separate from the body or the mind. It is another limb, another tool, another source of power. The way one speaks influences breath, posture, emotion, even the rhythm of thought. A scattered voice reveals a scattered mind. A calm voice reveals an inner foundation. And intentional words strengthen that foundation with each repetition. Mystical teachings across cultures speak about the creative force of the word. But the practical truth is simpler. Your nervous system listens to your speech. When you speak with frustration, the body tenses. When you speak with worry, the mind narrows. When you speak with clarity, the entire system aligns around that clarity. This is not magic. It is self-mastery. In the monastery, students were taught to speak only after they had taken one breath of awareness. This breath softened impulsiveness. It created space between emotion and expression, and within that space, intention could form. Over time, their words became lighter, cleaner, and yet more powerful. They no longer spoke from reaction but from presence. When speech becomes intentional, it stops being noise and becomes a tool, a compass, a quiet force shaping your inner landscape. This is why certain phrases, spoken with calm focus, can shift your state faster than hours of thinking. Words repeated with sincerity guide the mind into alignment, like footsteps tracing a path through the forest until it becomes clear and familiar. This is the power of the word, not to control the world, but to steady the world within. There's a quiet space between thought and reality, a gap so subtle that most people move through life without noticing it. Yet this space is where transformation begins. In the Buddhist and Shaolin traditions, the purpose of mindfulness was never to escape the world, but to see this space clearly, to understand how intentions grow into actions, and how actions shape the person you become. The masters would say that a single unobserved thought can steer a life off course, while a single observed thought can correct a path entirely. This is why mindfulness was treated as a form of training, not a gentle pastime. Each moment of noticing, a breath, a sensation, an emotion rising and falling, strengthened the practitioner's awareness. Over time, this awareness became a bridge linking inner intention to outer behavior. Students learned that thoughts are not harmless whispers. They are seeds. Left unattended, they grow in wild directions, driven by habit and impulse. Observed with calm attention, they become deliberate choices. This is the heart of mindful practice. Not stopping thoughts, but knowing them so clearly that they no longer rule without permission. In the monastery, simple tasks became lessons. Sweeping the courtyard, pouring tea, walking across the wooden floor, each action was slowed just enough for the mind to notice itself. The breath deepened, the senses softened, and slowly, the inner world and outer world began to move in harmony. This harmony is what many seek but rarely recognize. The moment when your actions reflect your true intention, not your old patterns. Mindfulness turns life into practice. It turns wandering thoughts into steady direction. And through this training, reality begins to shift, not through force, but through alignment. Thought guides action. Action shapes identity, and identity becomes the reality you live each day. There's a rhythm within each person that often goes unnoticed. The quiet pull between action and stillness, strength and softness, movement and reflection. Ancient teachings describe these forces as two currents flowing through the same river. When they move together, the river runs clear. When they clash, the water becomes turbulent. The date 12/12 symbolizes this meeting point, a moment when these inner currents can be seen more clearly. Throughout history, the masculine and feminine have never been about gender, but about qualities of the spirit. The masculine represents direction, decision, forward motion. The feminine represents intuition, openness, and the ability to receive what the world offers. Both are essential. Both are incomplete without the other. And self-mastery is the art of allowing these energies to work in harmony rather than competition. In the old temples, the training reflected this balance. A student might spend the morning in powerful physical drills, activating the fiery force of action, but in the evening, they would sit in meditation, learning to listen to the body, the breath, and the subtle whispers of the mind. One practice sharpened intention, the other softened resistance. Together they created a practitioner who could move with precision and rest with presence. On a day like 12/12, the symmetry of the numbers mirrors this inner symmetry. It encourages a pause, not to choose one energy over the other, but to recognize how both live within you. Many people struggle because they push when they should be listening or wait when they should be stepping forward. Harmony comes from knowing when to lead and when to allow, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to act and when to simply be aware. This balance strengthens clarity. It steadies emotion. It aligns intention with intuition. When the inner energies find harmony, the outer path becomes far easier to walk. In the early stages of training, students often believed that mastery came from adding more techniques, more strength, more knowledge. But the masters would simply smile and shake their heads. You do not rise by piling more onto the mind, they would say. You rise by removing what no longer belongs. Release, not accumulation, was the hidden path. Letting go is one of the most challenging lessons in the Shaolin tradition. It asks a person to loosen their grip on the identities they cling to, the stories they repeat, and the emotions they carry like old armor. These patterns may feel familiar, even comforting, but they weigh down the spirit. They turn every step into resistance. Ancient wisdom teaches that what you refuse to release becomes the cage that keeps you from seeing your true self. On days marked by symbolic alignment, like 12/12, this truth becomes sharper. The symmetry of the date acts like a pause in the flow of life, a moment where the inner eye opens more easily. What needs to be released becomes easier to recognize. The old frustrations, fears, and self-created roles appear not as truths, but as habits that have outlived their purpose. In the monastery, release was practiced through simple but disciplined rituals. A student might sweep the same courtyard each morning, not to clean the ground, but to clean the mind. Each stroke of the broom symbolized letting go of a thought, a memory, or a judgment. Over time, the courtyard shone, and so did the student's clarity. Letting go is not forgetting. It is choosing not to carry what weakens your balance. It is understanding that the past can be honored without being dragged forward. When release becomes a practice, space is created. Space for insight, for direction, for renewal. And in that space, the path ahead becomes far easier to walk. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the monastery was still and the world had not yet begun its noise, students would gather to set their intention for the day. It was never dramatic. A single breath, a single sentence, spoken softly to themselves. Yet this simple ritual shaped their entire path. The masters taught that an intention was not a wish, it was a direction, a compass point, a quiet decision that, when repeated, carved character into the mind like water carving stone. On a day like 12/12, the act of setting intention carries a special clarity. The symmetry of the date feels like a gentle alignment within, a moment when inner direction becomes easier to sense. But this clarity is only meaningful if acted upon. Declaring an intention is not about imagining an ideal future. It is about tuning your inner compass so your choices begin to move in the same direction, step by step. In Shaolin practice, repetition was the anchor. Students would speak the same intention each morning for weeks, months, sometimes years. Not because the intention was weak, but because the mind needed consistency. With each repetition, the intention sank deeper into posture, breath, habit, reaction. Eventually, it transformed from words into behavior, from behavior into identity, and from identity into a lived reality. This is how intention becomes practice. It becomes the internal guide that quietly redirects you when you drift into old patterns. It reminds you of the person you are choosing to become, instead of the person you once were. On 12/12s or on any day you choose, the question is not simply what you want. The real question is, what direction will you commit to? What intention will you repeat until it becomes part of your movement, your decisions, and your way of being? When intention becomes a compass, the path forward begins to reveal itself. In the heart of the monastery, students would often rush toward moments they believed were extraordinary, searching for signs, energy, or sudden insight. The elders would watch quietly and remind them, true transformation does not arrive in flashes. True activation is built quietly, day by day, breath by breath, movement by movement. Discipline is the portal, not the moment itself. The Shaolin masters understood that what appears as sudden clarity or power is actually the culmination of countless repetitions, each one unnoticed, each one uncelebrated. Meditation practiced at dawn, breath regulated through conscious attention, stances held until muscles remember precision, steps repeated until the body and mind move as one. These were the real gateways. A special date, a celestial alignment, or a spiritual sign might highlight the shift, but it could not create it alone. Discipline transforms potential into reality. Without it, even the most auspicious moment passes like wind through leaves. With it, small, consistent actions compound, shaping character, focus, and awareness. In Shaolin philosophy, this is how mastery unfolds, not through sudden bursts, but through the deliberate cultivation of the mind and body. Each practice session, each controlled breath, each quiet reflection builds a foundation that can support greater insight and alignment. On a day like 12/12s, it is tempting to search for the extraordinary, the mystical activation that promises change. Yet the portal only opens fully for those who have prepared themselves through discipline. Daily habits are the invisible architecture of awakening. Each act of focused practice, each repetition of mindfulness, each ethical choice reinforces the inner structure that allows clarity, energy, and purpose to move freely. Discipline is not restriction. It is freedom realized. It is the path through which potential becomes lived experience, and the true activation of the mind, body, and spirit is made possible. In the quiet of the training hall, students often observed the world outside through the lattice of the windows. The wind bent the trees, the sunlight shifted across the courtyard, and distant sounds echoed faintly. The elders would remind them, mastery is not hiding from the world, nor is it escaping its turbulence. True mastery begins when the mind is calm, the body steady, and attention awake, and then the outer world no longer pushes or pulls uncontrollably. When inner clarity is cultivated, it naturally begins to shape the way one engages with life. Thoughts become deliberate, actions measured, and responses intentional. A person who has trained the mind to notice patterns, to steady emotion, and to hold attention can walk through chaos without being swept away. This is the alignment between inner and outer. When the center is stable, the edges of life reflect that stability. What once felt random or overwhelming becomes something navigable, even when challenges remain. In Shaolin training, this principle is expressed in movement and stillness alike. A strike is powerful not only because of the strength behind it, but because of the focus and presence that guide it. A step taken across the floor is precise because attention has been disciplined. The outer world, opponents, obstacles, or unexpected circumstances responds not because it has changed, but because the practitioner has learned to move in harmony with it. Awareness bridges the inner state and the external environment, creating a flow where intention meets reality. On days like 12/12s, symbolic alignments may draw attention to shifts in energy or consciousness. Yet the true shift occurs when inner mastery meets daily action. The mind that is still, the intentions that are clear, and the habits that are disciplined begin to ripple outward. Life stops feeling like something that happens to you and becomes something you navigate from a calm, self-aware center. In this harmony, the inner and outer worlds are no longer separate. They are reflections of one continuous practice. As December 12th unfolds, it offers more than a date on the calendar. It offers a mirror, a chance to pause, to notice, and to engage with the deeper currents of your own mind. The 12/12's activation portal does not grant change from the outside. It highlights what is already within, inviting you to step into clarity, presence, and mindful choice. The lessons of stillness, disciplined practice, balance between action and receptivity, and the intentional use of words remind us that transformation is cultivated, not awaited. Each moment becomes an opportunity to align thought, intention, and action, to move through life with awareness rather than distraction, with purpose rather than habit. When practiced daily, these principles turn ordinary days into small portals of awakening, shaping not only the mind but the reality it perceives and creates. Take this day as a gentle reminder. The path of mastery is not found in sudden miracles, but in steady, deliberate practice. Notice what arises, release what no longer serves, speak with intention, and let your inner compass guide each step. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If the teachings of inner clarity, mindful presence, and Shaolin wisdom resonate with you, subscribe to Shaolin Soulfire and walk this path with us. Step softly, breathe deeply, and let each moment become an opportunity to practice your own awakening.